Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Malo Damim in Israel. One of the great constants in our lives is that we are always situated in a specific place. We can move around from one place to another, but at any given time, we are always in one place. This is simply the way things are, and there is nothing we can do about it. The only way we can avoid the sense of place is to get totally absorbed in our own mental space and be oblivious to wherever we really happen to be. At those times, like when we dream, the place we are in is only relevant on a peripheral level. We don't really think about it, and it loses its immediate importance to us. But there are other times when we become totally absorbed in the place we are in, and all else becomes immaterial. It could be a particular spot that has great significance to us. It could be somewhere that is very beautiful or awe-inspiring or terrifying. It could even be a spontaneous moment of awareness or interest in where we happen to be. That place becomes all important to us for that moment. It guides our thoughts and demands our complete attention. It is where we are, and that is everything. Then there are certain places that seem to do this to many different people. These spots are like magnets, attracting us to them and captivating us with some force of fascination. They could be places where nature is particularly amazing, or where a great event of the past has taken place. They could be the highest or lowest or biggest or smallest according to some scale. And for that reason, we find ourselves wanting to be there, taking in the experience. There are also specific places that have assumed an odd and undefinable quality known as holiness. There is, of course, no way to actually measure this quality, but to those who believe it exists in a particular location, nothing can be more engaging. The significance attached to these places may seem arbitrary to those who don't share this belief, but that doesn't matter in the least to those who do. Holiness of a place, whatever it may really be, is the sense that this location has some sort of divine or spiritual reality associated with it. That reality can be sensed and imbibed if one has sufficient belief and enthusiasm. It is not easy to say how many of these types of places there really are in the world. Perhaps they come and go with the whims and beliefs of those who impart this sense of holiness upon them. There is no guarantee that a particular place will retain its holiness forever. It's all a matter of whether or not people continue to ascribe holiness to it. Of course, if the place is marked in some way by a building or some other indication, this will keep the feeling going long after the original believers have passed into history. Most so-called holy places have something of this sort to mark them, and thus gain their immortality among places in the world. The Bible, of course, has no shortage of these holy places. In fact, it probably has more of them than any text in the history of the world. Most of them have been lost with the passing of the millennia, which should be no great surprise. We are talking about somewhat vague locations that have been covered by literally thousands of years of dirt and other buildings. It is a bit amazing that any of them have survived all that. When they do survive, it is almost invariably due to the fact that they were preserved in some way through the centuries, probably because they were venerated as religious shrines. The site of the ancient temples in Jerusalem is a prime example of this. We know where it was because the Muslims took it for themselves as the site of one of their most prestigious mosques. There's another of these sites from biblical times that is even older than the 3,000-year-old site of the temples. This is the ancient burial ground in the city of Hevron, near the middle of Israel, about 20 miles south of Jerusalem. It is so old that the massive building on top of it, which itself is about 2,000 years old, is only a little more than half its age. It is difficult to imagine anything being venerated for almost 4,000 years. But if there is such a thing, it is this place in Hevron, which is highlighted in this week's Parsha. The Parsha is called Chayei Sara, which means the life of Sarah. The Parsha opens with the verse stating that Sarah lived for 127 years. The next verse states that, quote, she died in Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham came to eulogize Sarah and to mourn her. This is the only parsha named to commemorate the life of somebody, so that puts Sarah in pretty rare company. Immediately after announcing her death, the parsha goes into a long, detailed negotiation on the part of Abraham and the locals of the area to purchase a certain cave for Sarah's burial place. When this round of bargaining is complete and Sarah is buried, the Parsha then goes into an enormously long narrative involving Abraham's servant, Eliezer. This servant is sent to Abraham's old home in Mesopotamia to find a wife for Isaac, the son who narrowly escaped death by sacrifice at the end of last week's Parsha. The journey and the events that take place in the course of Eliezer finding Abraham's grandniece, Rebekah, or Rivka as she is known in Hebrew, take up most of the Parsha. The story is told once as it occurs, with Eliezer encountering her at a well and requesting that she supply both him and his camels with water. When she accedes to this request, he asks her who she is and finds that she is indeed the girl he was seeking. She then takes him to her home where he meets her father and her brother Laban and repeats to them everything that happened in great detail. When it is finally over and the marriage is agreed upon, Rivka chooses to return immediately with Eliezer back to Abraham and to her new husband Isaac. The rest of the Parsha is short, dealing only with Abraham taking another wife and fathering several more children. These children are sent off to some vague place in the east with certain gifts that he gave them. Next, Abraham himself dies at the age of 175 and is buried in the same cave that Abraham buried Sarah. So this Parsha, which is entitled to commemorate the life of Sarah, actually contains the deaths of the two oldest figures of the patriarchal age. It closes with the genealogy of Ishmael, the oldest son of Abraham, and his death at the age of 137. With this, a chapter is closed in the story of the patriarchs, and the torch is passed to the next generation. But we are going to focus on that cave described and negotiated over at the beginning of the Parsha. It is called Ma'arat Machpelah, which means something on the order of the cave of pairs or double cave. Judaism has produced two explanations for this name. One stems from the pairs that were buried there over the years. In addition to Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rivka and Jacob and his first wife Leah were buried there. An extension of this is the vague tradition that none less than Adam and Eve were also buried there, but this is of much less certain authority. The second explanation is that the cave contains two levels, an upper level which was probably an entryway and a lower level which was the actual burial ground. The negotiations go back and forth in the Parsha, with Abraham insisting on speaking to the actual owner, a Hittite with the name of Hevron. He in turn insists, along with the rest of the people involved, that Abraham had every right to bury Sarah there without any purchase at all. Abraham, surprisingly, insists on paying full value for the cave and the field that surrounded it. Hevron then comes up with the price for the land and the cave, 400 shekels, which was probably a hefty amount at the time. Without hesitation, Abraham counts out the silver and gives it over to Hevron, and the field and the cave become his to bury his wife. For some reason, the Torah makes a very major point about the cave and the field having officially, unquestionably, being passed over to Abraham as his permanent possession. It was his first possession in the land that was divinely promised to his descendants. This event took place about 3,700 years ago. That's a long time. To the best of anyone's knowledge, the location of the cave has always been well established. It has always been right there in the middle of the ancient city of Hevron, where it still is today. The building which sits above it was built in the time of Herod, the despotic king of Israel around 2,000 years ago. It is a massive building that swallows the cave beneath it and gives almost no indication from outside as to what lies within it. There are multiple levels within the building, with almost all the accessible space high above the burial cave. There has been very little exploration of what lies underneath the building, owing to the long-standing dispute between the Jews and Muslims over who controls access. In the few attempts at excavation, the room above the cave has been explored, and a certain amount has become known of the cave itself. There seems to be good evidence that it was indeed an ancient burial ground, perhaps going all the way back to this time. In other words, there is a good chance that this is really the cave in which the patriarchs and their wives are buried. While no grave marked with the names of any of them has ever been found, this is probably where their remains are to be found. This cave is thus a real piece of ancient history associated with real and known people, the likes of which are probably only rivaled by the pyramids in Egypt. It is vanishingly rare to have something this old definitively linked to such a well-known personality. He is credited with being the founder of monotheism, which became the basis for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It is hard to imagine somebody with more ultimate impact on the future of the world. And his body, more likely than not, lies in this ancient cave underneath this ancient building. This is a remarkable link with the past and with much of our own history. Perhaps the Torah was onto something in stressing the legitimacy and authority of Abraham's purchase of this cave as a burial place for his wife. The text states that the field and the cave and all the surroundings were, quote, established to Abraham in front of everyone. The Torah repeats this expression a few verses later to demonstrate that this was to be a permanent possession. It is truly amazing that this place, out of all that happened back then, remains as the single link to the patriarchs of the Bible. Some places seem to be destined to retain their holiness forever. These places are rare and precious. This cave is such a place, for within it are preserved forever the earthly remains of those ancient discoverers and founders of the belief in one God. The term holy is extremely difficult to define. We think we have some idea of what it means with regards to a text or a person or even a time, but it is especially difficult with regards to a place. If anywhere, this cave with its ancient historical significance seems to be the very definition of a place which is holy. Shabbat Shalom.